Hey, so I just want to make a video for anybody who is struggling with a trading post or wants to improve its trading post or just like to gain more gold in general. One of the first things I want to talk about is where to trade. So for most people, Monarch's Bluff, Everfall, and Windsward are going to be the prioritized purchased areas for each faction, and those are going to be your main selling areas. Now, if you're struggling selling something, for instance, like higher level gear, you're probably going to want to move it up to a higher level area such as Restless Shore, where there's a level 45 dungeon. You'll have a better chance of selling it over there. But for most things, you want to sell them in the three main areas of the first purchased lands. Now, I want to go into how to travel. So what you're going to do is traveling is you can obviously just buy land and then fast travel through that means, because the cost of Izalith is going to be very expensive after a couple transfers. So fast traveling for me right now is 133. You only have 1,000 for your cap, so that's going to get very expensive. Probably the best current method, which I'm hoping they change and rework the way of fast travel in general, is going to be placing a campfire in about this area right here. So what that's going to allow you to do is it'll allow you to die if you just walk out of the settlements just a little bit forward by going into your game menu and hitting respawn. Whenever you do that, it'll say respawn at campfire. You can go here, and then if you walk a little bit to the left, roughly around here, it'll respawn you over in Monarch's Bluff. But if you walk up towards here, it'll respawn you in Everfall. And if you walk just straight over to the river, it'll allow you to spawn in Windsward. The next thing I want to go over is how to profit. One of the easiest ways to profit is flipping things. So, for instance, if we were to look at iron, which I had just recently done, so it won't be very good right now, but you can buy out all of the iron and then resell it. So it's only going to cost us 234 right here to buy out all that iron, and then you would just go to the sell tab and sell it, for instance, for a pop. And then they'll be more likely to buy yours than anybody else's because it's just the lowest price point. The next way to make profit is going to be taking it and transferring it to a different city. So you can go over to the all settlements, and now you're able to view which is the cheapest one it is. And so for my case, it is already Windsward. So I could buy it all in Windsward and then move over to Everfall, for instance, and sell it for 4 a piece, and that'll make you a large profit because you only bought it for 350. The last thing I want to talk about is buying materials that have been made. So if you were to buy a iron warhammer, for instance, which I know is one of the made materials, you can just go ahead and buy one of the hammers from here, which will then allow you to scrap it. Whenever you scrap a hammer, it will give you 1 to 4 iron. You can then resell that iron onto the market for a higher overall profit. That's how I've been getting my iron as of right now, and then just reselling it. It's much cheaper. The next thing I want to talk about is making sure that it'll actually sell. So whenever you do go to sell something, I would recommend putting it at a point where it's not too high or too low. So you want to keep it around what the market already is, so dropping it like maybe 1 or 2 things underneath what the current one is. Another thing would be to only really put it in there for 3 days, because if it's not selling within 3 days, it is most likely too high. You can put it in there for higher amounts of days if you're using a technique called walling. Walling is basically where you have a large amount of something and you just put it in there so that you're kind of the backfall on whenever the market drops. So for instance, this guy is selling fiber for 2,000 of them at 1.60. It'd be very expensive and time consuming for somebody to buy out all this at this current time, at least, where gold's not very prevalent. But it wouldn't be too terrible to buy out all this guys and then go ahead and sell it underneath him. So the walls typically are going to stay there, and they'll take more people to buy them out in order to finish it and push it back up the market. Another thing I would like to explain is that you can also just put it in there for a low amount, like we just saw with that guy with the fibers, and people will buy it much faster than anything else here. So it'll just constantly get bought versus it staying in there for a little bit longer. So it kind of just depends whether you want a long-term return or a quicker term return. The next thing I would sell is high prioritized items. So this is going to fluctuate based on when the game, or what stage the game is in. But for instance, I was selling bags for a very high amount. Whenever they first started, I was selling them for 850 gold, and they were selling within like 6-7 hours. These T2 bags that are now going for 550 still, which is still a lot considering I think it only costs 50 or 100 gold to buy the one item you need for it, and honestly you could spend maybe like an extra 200 buying the rest of the items from the market. So you're still making double the profit off of building one of those. And then these higher bags, I saw I think 4 of them last night, all selling for 1800, so that means they sold pretty quickly for just a T3 bag. Another thing would be having good rolls on weapons. So for instance, once the meta is more established and you see for like blessed on a life staff, it will be more likely to get grabbed just because that is one of the best perks that you can possibly get on it. Another thing is having a pure roll in the main stat. Any main stat's probably going to be good just because people use offhand weapons, but it being the main stat of the weapons even better because that means the people that maining those weapons are going to be likely to buy them. So if it's all focus instead of 17 strength, nobody's going to want the 17 strength one. You just go ahead and salvage those. Lastly, to like kind of tell what items are going to be bought more often are going to be the things that are based off of the bounty board, which is over here if you don't know. And the bounty board is currently the most efficient way of farming XP. So if you're selling things like, oh, okay. Well, usually there'll be like fiber and fish and iron there, and those are going to be the items that you're going to want to sell. And the more you level up your trades, the more it'll show you. So the higher level trades will eventually be more prioritized by people once the game is in later progression. The last thing I want to go over is predicting the market. One of the easiest ways to predict the market is to go onto newworld-maps.com, and that'll show you where specific resources spawn. So for instance, you can see there's a ton of hemp down here. And then there's really not too much iron. It's just kind of a little bit on this and a little bit on this. So iron is typically going to sell for higher prices, but hemp will be a lot cheaper here. And then over in Monarch's Bluff, where there is just a massive amount of iron and really good iron running routes, you can sell or buy iron for cheaper here, and then move it over here, and then move the hemp over there. Also, you want to look at people's builds. So as you can see, you can walk around my area, and most people are going to be using melee weapons and as well as healing staffs. So you see a lot of fish and food on the market from your healers, and then you're going to see a lot of like more iron weapon crafting from your melee characters, just because those are the ones that are affected by their stats. The last thing is going to be the biggest thing, which is the town hall buffs. If you don't know what those are, you can just go over to your main town, which is the town hall, which is right next to the project board, and walk. I don't know if you can pick more than one buff because I'm not a company leader. There has always been one buff for us, so these buffs will change how likely people are to farm for certain things. So we have a 20% increase on mining, so you can go ahead and go, oh, okay, the mining is, or the iron is going to go down in price, especially during the last couple of hours of this, because everybody's just grinding for the resource at the last couple of hours of this. And then the market drops really heavily. We had a gathering buff for the 20%, and the market went from like 1.8, 1.5 on the fibers all the way down to 0.3, which is where the buy orders come into play. So buy orders, whenever you think there's going to be a drop, you can go ahead and place them. So because I know there's an iron one, I can go ahead and place a buy order on iron. So if I see the iron drop super low, let's say like it ends up getting down to, so you're also going to kind of need to know the market in that sense of how low you'll think it'll drop. You can go ahead and place a buy order for 700 of them, and then if it ever drops that low, bam, you'll buy them right away. And you want to typically put these in for a long amount of time, or if you're expecting a Sun and 1, you can go ahead and put that in. There's only a couple days left on the server, so that's what I'll be doing with mine. And yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for all of the tips that I have for buying, selling, and trading. Make sure to like, sub, and subscribe. Share this with your friends to help them out as well. That'll help the YouTube algorithm.